February 28, 2025, was supposed to be a landmark day for U.S.-Ukraine relations. The White House doors swung open to welcome Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for a high-stakes meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. On the table, a massive deal centered on Ukraine's rare earth metals, resources worth trillions that could redefine global tech and energy markets. The world watched, expecting a handshake that would secure Ukraine's economic future and solidify Trump's legacy as a dealmaker. Instead, what unfolded was a diplomatic train wreck that's now sending shockwaves across the planet. For weeks, whispers of a blockbuster agreement had been circling. Trump, fresh into his second term, had been vocal about wanting Ukraine to pay back the billions the U.S. had poured into its war effort against Russia. His solution? Tap into Ukraine's vast reserves of rare earth metals, elements like lithium, titanium, and graphite, critical for everything from electric car batteries to military tech. Ukraine, sitting on an estimated 5% of the world's critical minerals, seemed like the perfect bargaining chip. Zelensky, meanwhile, was pushing his victory plan, a roadmap to end the war that included trading resources for security guarantees. By late February, the deal was taking shape. $500 billion in U.S. aid and protection in exchange for a hefty slice of Ukraine's mineral wealth. Sources say the U.S. even floated owning 50% of these reserves outright. It was bold, controversial, and until February 28th, looked like it might actually happen. The meeting kicked off at 11 a.m. Eastern Time in the Oval Office. Cameras rolled as Trump and Zelensky sat across from each other, flanked by Vice President J.D. Vance and a handful of aides. The mood was tense from the start. Trump opened with a grin, calling it a big day for America and promising to dig into Ukraine's resources. Zelensky nodded, tight-lipped, and thanked the U.S. for its support, but his words carried an edge. He stressed guarantees, security for Ukraine against Russia, not just a mineral swap. That's when things started to unravel. According to insiders, Trump pushed hard on the rare earth deal, saying Ukraine owed the U.S. for hundreds of billions already spent. Zelensky fired back, insisting he wasn't there to play cards or sell out his country's sovereignty. 10 minutes in, voices were raised, and the room turned into a pressure cooker. What happened next was pure chaos. Trump, visibly irritated, accused Zelensky of disrespecting the sacred Oval Office. He brought up Ukraine's wartime aid, claiming the U.S. got nothing in return while Europe reaped trade benefits. Vance piled on, slamming Zelensky for lecturing America when it held all the leverage. Zelensky didn't back down. He reportedly said Ukraine wasn't a pawn and demanded real commitments, not just resource grabs. The breaking point came when Trump cut the meeting short, standing up and telling Zelensky to get out if he couldn't show gratitude. By 11:30 a.m., the Ukrainian delegation was escorted out, and the rare earth deal, poised for signing that day, was dead in the water. Fox News broke the story first. Deal with Ukraine collapses after Oval Office blowout. Social media erupted, with Trump-Zelensky trending worldwide. Let's zoom out and unpack why this matters. For months, Trump had framed this deal as a win-win. Ukraine gets protection, the U.S. gets minerals to rival China's dominance in rare earths. Ukraine's reserves, especially in the Donbas region, are a gold mine, but here's the catch. Russia controls much of that territory. Even if the deal had gone through, getting those resources would have been a logistical nightmare. Zelensky knew this, and insiders say he'd been pushing back against Trump's terms since early February. Just 2 weeks ago, at the Munich Security Conference, he rejected a U.S. proposal for 50% ownership, calling it a threat to Ukraine's sovereignty. Trump's team saw that as defiance. Zelensky saw it as survival. The White House clash was the boiling point of that tension. The fallout's already massive. Hours after the blowout, Trump took to X, calling Zelensky a dictator and hinting at cutting all U.S. aid. Zelensky jetted off to London, meeting UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on March 1st for emergency talks. Europe's scrambling too, an EU summit set for March 2nd to address the rift. Russia's gleeful, with Kremlin mouths saying it proves the West's unreliable. Markets felt it. Oil prices twitched, defense stocks dipped, and rare earth futures wobbled as investors braced for uncertainty. For everyday people, this could mean pricier tech. Those minerals aren't easy to replace. And for Ukraine, it's a gut punch. Without U.S. backing, its war effort and economy could buckle, especially if Trump follows through on his threats. So, what sparked this firestorm? Trump's camp says Zelensky overplayed his hand, expecting Biden-era blank checks. Zelensky's side argues Trump's demands were a power grab, not a partnership. The truth? Probably both. Trump's deal-first mindset clashed with Zelensky's do-or-die stakes. Rare earths were the flashpoint, but the real fight was leverage. Trump wanted gratitude and control. Zelensky wanted security and autonomy. Neither blinked, and the Oval Office became a battleground. Posts on X captured the heat. One user wrote, "Trump just kicked Zelensky out like a bouncer," while another said, "Zelensky stood his ground. Respect." Love it or hate it, this was raw, unfiltered geopolitics on display. Where does this leave us? The rare earth deal's toast. For now, Reuters says the White House might push a watered-down version later, but trust's shattered. Ukraine's pivoting to Europe, but the EU can't match US firepower. Trump's team isn't backing off. Aides say they'll bring Zelensky to reality. Meanwhile, Russia's watching, waiting to exploit the chaos. This isn't just a US-Ukraine spat, it's a tectonic shift. Will Trump double down and freeze Kiev out? Will Zelensky find new allies fast enough? And what happens to those precious minerals if the war drags on? The answers are coming, and they'll reshape the world. Global Pulse isn't letting this slip by. We're tracking every move, from Washington to Kiev to Moscow. This scandal's a wake-up call. Power, resources, and pride don't mix quietly. Subscribe now for the sharpest, swiftest updates as this unfolds. The White House clash is history in the making, and we're here to break it down, frame by frame. What's your take? Trump's toughness or Zelensky's defiance? The world's split, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Stay tuned.